Part of how I got into researching the unwritten rules of work for people from low-income backgrounds was in unpacking my own biases. I've talked a lot on here about the work blunders I've had and my redneck moments in when I was starting to get into higher class environments and starting my IO psychology graduate program and being like, why are people talking about task performance and then not defining what contextual performance is? But another part of it was even more personal and harder to see, which was realizing how things are just rebranded to do the same harms or as closely as allowed harms. And I was only able to do this once I had identified the pieces within myself that allowed for these harms. And once I recognized those pieces were there, I noticed that changing the name didn't make them disappear. They just gave me an excuse to keep being ignorant and dismissive of other people. So I wasn't as upset when SHRM rebranded from equity to civility. And part of that is because I also know institutionally people are trying to rename things just to not lose funding because there's so much attack on explicitly DEI. So I wasn't sure if it had malintent because SHRM has put a lot of good out there. But also, there have always been rebrands of what is now called DEI, and there have always been rebrands of the counter movement. Slavery rebranded to Jim Crow, rebranded to mass incarceration, rebranded to separation of family at the border. Slave owners rebranded to KKK, rebranded to Proud Boys. Beneath all of those things are the same unwritten, or and sometimes in history written, rules of white supremacy, the fallacy of white supremacy, the idea that one group has power and another shouldn't, and that group will set the rules of engagement for all of the others, and the other groups have to adhere to their norms to survive. Even though these rules often are not for the betterment of society or even the betterment of the function of the organizations or institutions that they hold. They're often counterproductive, but they give one group power, and that is what this is all about, is power. So in recent years for me, I have focused less on which terms are used and more on what is the underlying belief and assumption. Now, that being said, I do realize that the term civility in particular is very loaded because it has been used to tone police and silence Black and brown voices, but I will make a separate video on that.